Right guys, quick one here, but it's more of a public service announcement. It won't be relevant to most of you because I doubt you downloaded the app, but for the people who have, this is something you probably need to know, and let's be honest, the government should have been telling you from the start. Instead, they've run around essentially saying that when the app pings you must stay at home and all this nonsense, which of course is not actually true. That is only guidance, there's no law behind it, so you cannot be prosecuted if you actually don't listen to it. There must always be a distinction between what is guidance and obviously what is lawful. If it's lawful, you're breaking the law if you do it. No one can actually tell you to do that. But if it's only guidance, then guess what? It's entirely up to you what you do. This is actually something that Sir Charles Walker pointed out yesterday on Sky News. Here, I'll play you the clip so you can see it yourself. Send it to anyone else that's affected by this stupid pingdemic making them stay at home. All these businesses that are shut down are literally doing it for no reason.
Well, my understanding is that if you are pinged, that it is advisory, and it's up to people to decide whether to act on that advice or not. And I think there seems to be some confusion around it at the moment, and most of that seems to be stemming from government ministers.
I mean, that's
who are
what
doing
Mr.
a
Scully,
great
the
job.
minister, said this
Who are doing a
morning.
great job in difficult circumstances.
Mr. Scully this morning said it was advisory, and now we've got Downing Street rushing out a statement contradicting him. So who's right? Is it the government minister for business, or is it the number 10 spokesperson?
I think if you look at the legislation, it's advisory, isn't it? It's not enforceable in law. Whereas I believe if you're telephoned by test and trace or contacted by test and trace, then there is a legal obligation to self-isolate. So that's just the legislation. I mean, you can't go around reinterpreting the legislation. If you don't like what the legislation says, you probably have to change it.
So as you heard there, it's just guidance, it's not actually the law. If test and trace ring you themselves, then you have to stay at home because that is the law. If it's not that and it's just a stupid ping from their app that you shouldn't even really have on your phone, then guess what? You can just ignore it. And this here is also backed up by a little piece in the eye that they did yesterday, obviously when all this started getting questioned. It says, do I legally have to isolate if the app tells me to? If you're contacted by NHS Test and Trace and told to self-isolate, it's a legal requirement that you must do so. However, this is not the case if you're pinged by the NHS app and told to isolate. The app is only advisory, and while it's strongly recommended you self-isolate when you are told to, there is no legal requirement for you to do so. So obviously, if you're into doing tests and all that shit there, you can do one of them. Say that, look, I'm not positive, so I'm off out the door. Of course, that is your decision, and you have the right to make that, as you heard there. And of course, in what is expected by this government at this point, they've actually contradicted each other by saying one thing and then coming out with a completely different. It says here, Business Minister Paul Sully said on Tuesday morning that it's acceptable for people to ignore this app if it tells you to isolate. However, Downing Street has responded by stressing the importance of following the app's advice, which obviously Boris tried to ignore. Oh no, actually I don't think he was pinged by the app. I think you'll find he was actually done by test and trace, contacted directly that way. I could be wrong, but I think that's what it is, otherwise surely he would have just said it's guidance and I'm off out the door. Though then again, that might actually tell people they ain't been telling them the truth about everything. You know, what's lawful and what's only guidance. This is something they have been doing throughout. But either way, this app is only advisory, so if it pings you and you don't want to listen to it, you don't want to stay at home for 10 days, it's entirely up to you. Obviously, the government recommends it, but let's be honest, they've recommended a bunch of shit that don't make sense, so make your own decisions as we should have been doing from the fucking start.